Sit down in the elevator for Brother Lawson. Brother Lawson. So, yeah, she's good. Just lay down. We call it a board. I get you. Oh, they have a budget hearings on Tuesday. I don't want to start.
We have to hit no, because I gotta go back. I had, I had general stuff, right?
Yeah, we got to go back.
Twice, and I gotta go back.
To the one.
We're going to get this. Tell me what's done. Have a VIP with the hell out of me. Come on, there's not a time.
Of Sunny versus Board of Supervisors called for we'll call this brother.
He just started.
Dr. Ray Whitfield, Joey Nominee, Mr. John Bartholomew, Dr. Leroy Davis, Mr. Raymond Fondell Jr., Ms. Nadia Foster, Mr. Sam Gillian, Mr. Richard T. Hilliard, Myron Lawson, Ms. Christy Reeves, Attorney Boyd Rutledge, Ms. Anne A. Smith, Dr. Leon R. Tarver II, Dr. Samuel Tolbert, Dr. Orlando Williams.
Dr. Reed, we need you for a quorum. We don't have anything.
That he was for the Oscar Taylor.
Honey, lots of
World Career Center back.
He's going to the hospital. Yeah, 25, you don't make none.
To collaborate, to reason with one another. We pray now without your blessing, your great grace, as these leaders come together to reason, to think, to come to honor what you have established as you are the original educator, as you are. So I pray your blessings together, to wisdom, reason, leaders, to as they come to collaborate, as they come to work another county. I pray now, God, that you would favor them, Lord God, in their endeavors. I pray now that the spirit of wisdom as that counselor might be among each of them. I pray now, God, that you would open opportunities, God, for wisdom, that you would favor them, Lord God, even with government and leadership, God, that funding be opened up in the name of your son, Jesus. I pray your blessing and peace now as we endeavor to keep the unity of the spirit and the bonds of peace. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor.
And leadership, that funding in the name of your son, Jesus. I pray your blessing and peace now as we endeavor to keep the unity of the spirit. It's in Jesus' name. Amen.
Bro. Yeah, but I'm trying to see whether that we need to take some out. So she's good to go out of the required. I'm talking about people.
For our pledge this morning, I'm proud to introduce Ms. Nyla Guidry. Nyla is a senior at Southern Lab and the SGA president. She currently maintains a 3.86 cumulative GPA. This is Nyla's 7th year at the lab school, where she's already excelled as a kitten. During her time, she has served as SGA parliamentarian, junior class rep, sophomore class vice president, and a member of the Beta Club, media team, and sports medicine. Nyla has a very full schedule. Nyla is also on the track team, where she competes in shot put and discus. Nyla attends Greater King David Baptist Church. She loves drawing, writing, shopping, and spending time with family and friends while maintaining high academic standards. Nyla is the daughter of Jorinda and Eric Guidry, both Southern University alums. Nyla Guidry.
Good morning, Chairman Shorty, President Shields, members of the board, and distinguished guests. I am Nyla Guidry, a senior at Southern University Laboratory School. Would you all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Guidry. Now, I would like to have our president introduce a very special guest that we have this morning, President Shields.
Good morning, everyone. It was shortly after I was announced as selection that I got a call and a text from President Tate, and I'm eternally grateful for him taking the initiative to establish a relationship early on. And over the last week, I've been able to talk with him much more frequently as a result of the historic A&M agenda signing. But through all of that, one could go through his extraordinarily impressive academic record and leadership roles. But as I read about it this morning, the most impressive thing to me was that at one time he was a math teacher in K through 12. And that truly is remarkable. But under his leadership, this A&M agenda has come together. I'm a latecomer arriving just in July, and we're extraordinarily pleased to have President Tate present today to offer his remarks about the A&M agenda. Dr. Tate.
Well, thank you very much, President Shields. Chairman Shorty, it's good to see you as well. Distinguished members of the Board of Supervisors, I appreciate the opportunity just to come and thank you for what you do. And also to let you know the great excitement we have at LSU to be partnering with Southern University. There has always been a partnership in agriculture, very strong relationship. And what we're attempting to do is solidify it across a spectrum of activities that I think will add value to the people here in Southern Louisiana. It wouldn't be possible, President Shields is being quite humble, if he did not say, hey, yeah, let's do this. That's required in leadership, and you've been a great partner thus far. I'd like to also take the time to commend the various teams of individuals at Southern and at LSU that have been working together to manifest the document and the partnership and the arrangement. I really appreciate all the hard work that was put in. I also would like to express how wonderful it was last weekend for me. I personally, as I've said to some of you, you heard me speak, you know, as a child, went to HBCU games, SWAC games. That for me was the most important experience I've ever had at an athletic event, because undergirding it was a research and academic and opportunity agenda. And that's what it's really about. And I'm very excited to be going forward. Now, I want you all to hold me accountable. There are certain things now that, because we're in this partnership, we should be doing. And as I told a member of one of our distinguished legislative bodies, when he asked me what the A&M agenda was, I said, it's foundationally means you need to get us some money. So, you know, at its core, partnerships and policy are about resources. And it's really about us enhancing the resource structure to make sure opportunity manifests itself. And so I'm very excited to be here. I know you have a busy agenda, so I won't hold you from the business of the day. I do understand you have another game this weekend in my naturalized hometown of Dallas. So you all know what you all need to do to handle that business. And I greatly appreciate the opportunity to chat with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We always leave a little paper. The next time I hope it's green. But this is the A&M agenda that we signed and agreed to. And I hope as you look at it and reflect on it again, remember to hold the good president and I accountable for making these things happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President Tate. Let me make a few remarks about after. So we should all be grateful for President Tate's leadership. These are two remarkable institutions, and this shared agenda is not just a moment to create an agreement that goes on the shelf, but rather the start of a very intentional commitment to expand our potential in a manner that speaks to the opportunities and community through communication, collaboration, and express commitment for positive impact. What we have signed and committed to is embarking us on a journey for at least the next 5 years. I think it ought to go on into the future beyond that. And from this work, we will likely see the greatest impact on our students and the state, an impact I believe that will be immeasurable. To go through just a few of the activities that happened in the past week to support this. There was a community impact luncheon where the A&M agenda was introduced and signed. There was a joint food drive on both campuses led by students at LSU and Southern that yielded nearly 4,000 pounds of food for the Baton Rouge Food Bank. There was an A&M showcase where more than 2,500 middle and high school students participated in the A&M showcase at the Raising Cane River Center, where our campus deans had displays of academic offerings. Kudos to the Ag Center, who showcased nearly all of their programs in an interactive way. Then there was an education forum that featured a panel of K-12 teachers, Teacher Education Academicians and Louisiana's Superintendent of Education. This panel discussion was moderated by the Louisiana Higher Education Commissioner, Kim Hunter-Reid. The event was streamed live by Louisiana Public Broadcasting and will be aired again. It was quite eye-opening to hear directly from classroom teachers and to offer a great appreciation for their core role in education. And lastly, there was coffee and conversation, an academic roundtable. This roundtable was hosted here at Southern University and was another historic touch point in the week as the academic deans from both Southern University and Louisiana State University joined for breakfast to begin conversation on actualizing the A&M agenda. There were other events. A special one for me was a sneaker social, which we made the first dip into raising money to support this effort at the governor's mansion. And I'm jealous of those Tiger sneakers you were wearing, President Tate. And then there was the game, more appropriately for Southern, the halftime show. The chance for those two bands to get together and perform was remarkable. What a great experience overall, and what a great start to, I think, to something that I think will be remarkable for both our institutions and the state.
Thank you, President Shields. Thank you, President Tate. I would like to say that President Tate, I really appreciate the hospitality shown last week by both your staff and the LSU Board of Supervisors. I know a good time was had by all. If we weren't necessarily happy with the score, but the halftime show made up for it. And I do appreciate what President Shields has just said, and as I've talked to a lot of folks this week and have told them the game was just the culmination of a very packed week that revolved around a number of partnerships that sports and athletics was just a very small part of. And it was really about how we work together in this shared community, in the space that we occupy. And hopefully, I'm pretty certain that this partnership will last for a very long time and have a very significant impact, not only on the greater Baton Rouge area, but on the state as a whole. So thank you for everything from last week. If any of my other board members have any comments? None? Thank you, President Tate.
And I will say, so you do have another chance at some Tigers in November. You know what you need to do.
Yeah. I know about it. That was about to you good. Okay, taking this more than new heights, and I'm not in it.
I think I did okay. What's that? I said I get his.
Gilly still at the sneaker social from last week. Now turn to Chancellor Ammons. Chancellor, I understand your presentation.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, to members of the board, President Shields, colleagues. I want to thank you for this opportunity to come before you this morning to talk about some green. You know, as we sat and watched the impact that the pandemic had on the healthcare workforce, those of us at SUNO envisioned a role that we could play in producing well-qualified nurses to participate in the workforce in the New Orleans region and across this state. I came to you, the Board of Supervisors, with this notion. You approved it. The Board of Regents approved it, as well as the Board of Nursing. And this semester, we enrolled our first cohort of nursing students at the university. However, the accreditation of the program is dependent upon the performance of the first cohort on the NCLEX. And our goal was to fully fund the first cohort to ensure that the students in this cohort will not have to worry about any financial burdens from attending college. And so here today to announce an investment in this first cohort are representatives from the Blue Cross Blue Shield of Louisiana Foundation. And I'm going to ask Dr. Kim Rugan to come forward with Mr. Michael Timpton, the president of the foundation, and Ms. Chloe Wiley, program manager, along with Dr. Kelly Smith, the founding chair of the Bachelor of Science in Nursing at SUNO.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairman Shorty, President Shields, honorable members of the board, chancellors, and distinguished guests. Today, I am so honored, after much work and negotiations, to present a check in the amount of $432,000 from the Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Louisiana Foundation for our recently opened Bachelor of Science program in New Orleans. The Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Louisiana Foundation realized the shortage and the need for diverse nursing professionals in our region. Their investment in SUNO nursing program comes at a critical time. The 2020 pandemic has caused financial burdens and job loss for many families in our region. Funds from this grant will clear fee bills and provide students with monthly stipends to cover transportation, food, and other expenses incurred during the semester. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Louisiana Foundation's investment reassures our nursing students can relax and focus on doing well, preparing for clinical rotations, and studying for the NCLEX exam. We are so grateful to Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Louisiana Foundation members who are here with us today. They helped us through this grant process and actually made it very enjoyable as we moved from start to finish. In addition, I want to thank alumnus Michael Bruno and our friend of SUNO, Mr. Roderick Teamer, who encouraged and supported me during the process. I would like to invite Mr. Michael Tipton and Ms. Chloe Wiley to bring a few words on behalf of the Blue Cross and Blue Shield Louisiana Foundation.
Good morning, Mr. President, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Good to be with you all today. At Blue Cross, we are committed to improving the health and lives of the people of Louisiana. And we do that both through our daily work as a company, but also through the ways in which we give, supporting more than 300 nonprofits, organizations, universities throughout the state of Louisiana over the course of the last year. As was noted, want to bring welcome from my colleague, Chloe Wiley, sitting behind me, as well as our board chairman, Dan Bournet. Some of you got to hear his voice last weekend, Mr. Michael Bruno, as was noted, and our other colleagues at Blue Cross. As you all know, and as you heard, there's a nursing shortage in America. That was true before the pandemic, and certainly the pandemic has exacerbated that. We have a need for talented people stepping in to address frontline healthcare needs, and we need those folks to be even more diverse to meet the needs of communities throughout our state, throughout our country. And so when we were approached with the idea of investing in the work of SUNO to expand the capacity, expand the diversity of our nurse workforce, we were excited to make that investment and excited to be able to invest in this way. We believe these investments will produce nearly 100 nurses over the next couple of years to meet immediate needs. But we also hope this will be a challenge to other investors, be they providers in the healthcare field, be they other businesses. We know this is a critical investment for our state, and we hope others will match our investment and continue to expand this work. Certainly, we are proud to be able to support SUNO in this way, proud to be able to support the Southern system wherever we can, and as we can be a partner to any of you now or going forward, please don't hesitate to let us know. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Dr. Ammons, please accept this investment in your nursing program.
And for those of you who didn't hear, I asked if I could skip my insurance or no. I do want to commend Dr. Ammons and Ms. Rugan. I had the opportunity to tour the nursing school in the facility. It's state of the art, very impressive. And I know we're going to have great things coming out of that program. So thank you both. And thank you, Blue Cross Blue Shield. Now I'm going to turn to Chancellor Penning for a presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, board members, President Chancellor Shields, distinguished colleagues over here, friends, family, alumni of Southern University. Today gives me great pleasure to bring forth, I think, a check presentation that really speaks to what our new President Chancellor has echoed throughout his tenure so far. And that is a focus on student outcomes. And during our recent $1 Million March, my charge to our foundation, the Southern University Shreveport Foundation, was to raise at least $100,000 in support of student scholarships. So without further ado, they did not tell me exactly the amount of the check, but at least the floor is supposed to be $100,000. I'm going to bring forth Mr. Frank Williams, the Executive Director for the Southern University Shreveport Foundation, who is here not only with a symbolic check, but also a paper check that we can actually cash on the spot, take it to the bank. Mr. Frank Williams.
Thank you, Dr. Penny. Good morning to Chancellor. Thank you for that glowing comment, but the charge was pretty huge, as I can appreciate it. To Chairman Shorty, members of the Southern University System Board of Supervisors, and President Shields, I am Frank Williams, the Interim Chief of Staff and Executive Director for the Southern University at Shreveport Foundation. Thank you. I stand before you today representing the Board of Directors of the Shreveport Foundation. For those of you who don't know, the foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit corporation that was officially incorporated in 1999. When the then president and CEO of Horseshoe Riverboat Casino decided that of the 1,500 employees that work for the Horseshoe, and I like to pause and commend Dr. Tarver, because under his tutorage at this university, Mr. Binion contributed $1 million, which was distributed to the school and all of the foundations. His desire was to enhance their education of those employees. He wanted to assist them in their efforts, thus instructing me to make sure that my annual budget contained the funds for student scholarships, not only for the Horseshoe employees, but for any student that desired to further their education, but were not able to do so. The Southern University at Shreveport Foundation, like many other university foundations across the country, has experienced an overall decrease in normal level of financial contributions within the last few years. In addition to the decline in participation and support of various corporation businesses and individual donors, primarily due to the global pandemic, which is also the major event that has caused major fundraising priorities to shift significantly. Although this is a factor, the foundation goal is still to contribute $100,000 per year for student scholarships annually for the next 3 years. For example, the $125,000 check presented to the foundation in June of 2022 was for the purpose of scholarships. To date, we have distributed, not allocated, but distributed $93,766, of which leaves a balance of about $32,000 for 2021 period. But we are going to use that access for the beautification program at Southern University in Shreveport. Today, I stand before you and I'm very honored and pleased to present the actual check in the amount of $125,000 that is designated to student scholarships, university enhancement for the year of 2022. We're also excited and will be embarking on 5 major fundraising projects for 2022-23. The first one is our world-renowned Dr. Tarver 21 Annual Gentleman Cooking Classic, the 22 Port City Golf Classic, the 23 Annual Radiothon, the 2023 Annual Cotton Club Returns, and an event that involves the faculty, staff, and students. The first annual Sunday night bingo for Southern University at Shreveport family and friends, of which Suzzler will be rewarded $50,000 for the divisions of the school to distribute among their various departments. We at the foundation are committed to working in concert with the university in order to advance goals for SUSLA 2022-23. I thank you. And at this time, I'd like to ask Dr. Penny to come forward. I lost the check, but I'll try to improvise. Please come forward. This is the actual check. You can spend it today if you want. This is the play check. You can play with it if you want. I want to thank you very much and best of luck to Southern University.
Board members, SUSLA is your community college. I would be honored if you would join us for the picture taking.
You go. Oh, Frank. This gentleman has been a member of our board for many years, in addition to having been chairman, but he's always been there for us in every endeavor that we've undertaken, and we certainly appreciate it. But I wish you would do us one other favor. When you have that next cooking contest, I want you to invite where'd he go? President Shields. Yes, please invite President Shields. I'm sure he can whip up some concoction of food from where he came from in Wisconsin. Home for him to that cooking contest. I'd like to come up and taste it and say I got a cookie here.
Can you do an hour? Yes.
Thank you.
No one's ever fired anybody from Iowa to cook anything.
Let me go there because I got to join this.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Good. No. One of my aunties back. To the Honorable Sam Gillum and our Facilities Committee. Mr. Gillum.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The Facilities and Property Committee is hereby called to order. Mr. President, would you please give us the roll call?
Absolutely. Mr. Sam Gilliam. Dr. Rainey Whitfield. Dr. John Bartholomew. Mr. Richard Hilliard. Mr. Myron Lawson.
Here.
Dr. Leon Tarver II. Attorney Edwin Shorty.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you, William. Oh, I'll give you that. Thank you very much, Mr. President. We do have indeed have a quorum. The next item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Committee member, what is your pleasure? The move. Yeah, I don't think mine is on either. See. We're on now. Let's try this one. Maybe I'm on the wrong one. Doesn't appear as if.
There you go.
This one appears to be working. I'll lean over a little bit if you don't mind. We have a motion for, thank you very much, Dr. We have a motion for the adoption of the agenda. Is there a second? Second. It's been moved and seconded by Mr. Bartholomew that our agenda as printed before us would be adopted. Those in favor, please let it be known by the sign of aye. Aye. Opposed as nay. Hearing none, the agenda is thus adopted. We generally provide here two next, we've had item 4, right, Mr. Chairman? We've had all the presentations.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll go on to item number 5, which deals with public comments. Are there any public comments regarding anything in the Facilities and Property Committee agenda? See no one report from the audience, any digital responses? Hearing none, we'll move on to item number 6. And these are action items, all of them. There are about 4 of them. 8, no, yeah. We, prior to that, we're going to just pitch this to Mr. Ken Dawson, who's Assistant Facilities Planner for us. But we want to say this. He has been very diligent in having site visits with the Board of Regents facilities people on each of our campuses. Yesterday, we had a very fine tour of the Baton Rouge landmass here, including SUBR, the Law Center, the Agricultural Extension Research Center. Quite eye-opening, quite revealing that we saw, but he's also had the same meetings at Southern University in New Orleans and also at Southern University in Shreveport. And each one of those were quite revealing. And we owe it to the vision and the innovativeness of Mr. Dawson to be sure that all of those are taking place. Very fine. We'll pitch to you. These are action items. Would you care to make comments, Mr. Dawson, before we move for adoption?
Facility Chair into the Facility Committee, Dr. Shields, Chairman Shorty, and also to this illustrious board. These action items are basically following through on things that we were moving forward with for quite some time. The first action item is the cooperative endeavor agreement that we need for those particular projects that you see below the first paragraph. This is just to give approval to move forward with the CEA that we have to have with facility planning and control. The CEA template is attached to your packet, and speaking with our legal, that's what we need to move forward. We expect to have these CEAs in the proper form from facility planning in the upcoming week. The next item is a scope change request for the Lewis Collier Hall Science Building renovation in Shreveport. This is a project that started out that was underfunded to do the proper work that was necessary. The money that was allocated for that particular project, it was suggested that we move it and do a separate project that would build an annex for labs that could be utilized. We need that approval to move forward with that particular project. It's going to go to the IEB, and that form is attached also in your packet. Item C is the capital outlay request. Where this is the listing basically of all the projects. You know, one thing that President Shields wanted to make sure that we did is that in September that we have a list of projects that we'll be going forth with. I think it was a condition of employment, even though he didn't directly say it, but we did get that to you. And I want to thank all of the chancellors and the staff that's working very hard to go through these projects, to develop them and to submit them. So this will be ready to be submitted to the Board of Regents, which of course we will have another listing. And everybody knows that's when our process starts. If we will be dealing with what we need to take into the upcoming session. Item D is a Act 929 proposal that has to go to for the law center. The law center basically has $1.7 million they're gonna put toward a project, and we need the approval to take that to for Act 929 process for approval. So those are the action items that we're asking for approval today, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Dawson. As you can see, committee and board, a lot of work has gone into the preparation of all of these requests. The floor is now open for the committee. Those who have questions of Mr. Dawson. Mr. Lawson, I believe I say.
Excited where I see facilities headed. On the way here, I got a call from a law school student, board member Foster, young Jameson Jackson, I think it was, and he was talking about parking. I know, Chancellor, that you have been talking about parking for many, many years, and I see that's on the radar, and
yes, sir.
Several other things are on the radar. And the president certainly is aware, and I'm looking at things lining up, is what I'm saying. And I commend you for going above I-10. You've been on the Shreveport campus, and it's not because your chair hails up there, but thank you for not being afraid to put some grooves in the road between I-10 north. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lawson. Are there any other questions, points of clarification needed from Mr. Dawson? If not, floor is open. Oh, sorry, Dr. Tara.
I'll move in global passage of A through E.
Thank you, Dr. Tara. It has been moved in global that action items 6A, B, C, and D would be approved. Got a second from Mr. Bartholomew. Those in favor, please be known by sign of aye. Opposers, nay. Hearing none, these items are thus adopted. And again,
Thank you.
Dawson, thank you so much for being so conscientious in the work
Yes, sir.
and getting this done.
One more comment I'd like to make. You see in your packet a kind of a bar graph. I know we've been having a listing of projects and kind of looking at the status. We're going to do a little different way so that now you can kind of look at the date. You can see what needs to be done. It gives you a fast indication of where we are with the projects. Just do that, and if it's suitable, we will continue to move in that direction.
Thank you, Mr. Dawson. Did I carry that motion? I did not. Okay, those. Question, we have a question.
I just had a question about the timeline. I noticed on the one for the nursing addition that the planning and design doesn't actually begin until 23. I know that the state legislature allocated $1 million to accelerate that. So I just wanted to see if we are looking to accelerate that on the timeline.
It was $1 million that was not put in P1, so it wasn't money that we could cash that we can kind of move forward with it. My office, in fact, we just got off a call with a state representative just moving forward with that. We are very focused on that. That will be letters and emails sent to facility planning and control about moving this forward, getting in the direction so that we can get the design to FP&C so they can select the architect and get it done. So it's very, very high on our radar.
Mine too.
Okay.
Did we, coming on campus right here by the Graves, they're doing some work over there. Could you tell us a little bit about that? And then also, how do we stand as far as moving forward with the business school also?
Yes, you talked about the clearing.
Yes,
over
sir.
here. I mean, that's
those who may not here who may not know.
That's a project that's done by, I guess it's the foundation, or not the foundation, the alumni. The alumni is doing that, and I think it's some dollars that they had to kind of move forward with the clearing. I don't know the future of the projects. That's not directly in my line of responsibility, but so the business building, we're moving to basic, what I would say, programming and programming review. We at that particular stage, I will be meeting with Dean Andrews and his staff next week. I'm calling a meeting so we can continue to have those discussions on the programming piece. Talked with FPNC yesterday about it as well. So we got some things we're going to clear up on the program, but we are moving forward with that design.
Any anticipated dates? Is this 6 months out, 8
Well,
months out?
I mean, this
before we
is a
start moving
CMAR
dirt?
process. I mean, I think that before it goes into design, the CMAR selection process is a process that's set forth by state statute. So it takes about 3-4 months just to go to that process. Then you select an architect. Then you're looking at maybe 8 months to a year or so for even just development of drawings, and then to get a contractor in. So I mean, I think I have anticipated they may be on your chart there, but it's going to be sometime late 24, 25.
Everything is moving.
It's moving.
forward.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
All right.
Every
Thank you.
project that we have here, we put in a lot of effort to make sure that we continue to move each one of them forward.
All right. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you.
So I wanted to just, the Alumni Foundation project is both a facility for the Alumni Foundation to use and the potential for more student housing. But that's down the line a little ways.
Us housing students over there in a apartment complex?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Up to how many %?
They're still talking about that.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to speak this on. It's on. It's on. It's on.
It's on? Oh, okay. Well, I don't have any questions today. I just wanted to say thank you, Mr. Dawson, for all that you do. Thank you for taking my meetings and giving me much needed direction. And thank you, Dr. Shields, for also, President Shields, for meeting with me and of course, discussing parking. So I really appreciate all the meetings and of course, Chairman Shorty for also taking my excessive emails. So thank you all very much.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. We still have the motion on the floor of the table, as the case may be. Those in favor, again, let me know by sign of aye. Opposed, nay. These projects have thus been done.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks again, Mr.
And thank you.
For your interest. Number 7, agenda, informational items. I assume this is basically, I guess we're back to you, Mr. Dawson. Don't go too far, Mr. Dawson. Or has he already been?
Ken, any informational items?
Sorry about that. No, I just one informational item. We did attend a trip to the University of Wisconsin in Platteville. We took a group, as I think Dr. Shields mentioned, President Shields mentioned last time in this meeting. It was a very informative trip. Some of that information we will be utilizing in planning forward with our STEM building. Great relationship, great hospitality. And only thing I wish is that we had more faculty and staff to see some of the things that I think could definitely be implemented as we plan forward with our building. So.
Thank you very much. Number 8, would there be any other business coming before this committee? Here now, we move to item number 9, agenda. Your pleasure. Been moved and second.
Could you all state who's
making
made the motion and who seconded?
Bartholomew has moved for adjournment, second by Mr. Who's on my other committee? Dr. Tarver, you on my committee?
Any other upcoming motions?
And this motion is for adjournment, though.
Yes.
Okay, I've got a second. Okay, the Facilities and Property Committee is thus adjourned.
Thank you, sir. We'll now turn to Dr. Chairwoman, Ms. Williams.
I would like to call the meeting of the Finance Committee to order. Roll call, please, Dr. Shields.
Dr. Orlando Williams.
Present.
Mr. Myron Lawson. Present. Mr. Sam Gilliam. Mrs. Christy Reeves. Attorney Des Moines Rutledge. Here. Dr. Leon Tarver II. Here. Attorney Edwin Shorty.
Here.
You have a quorum.
I'll entertain a motion for the adoption of the agenda. Moved by Christy Reeves, second by Mr. Lawson. All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion passes. Any public comments? Once, twice. Informational items, your interim financial reports are in the packets. Any other business? We stand in adjournment. I'll entertain a motion. Moved by Ms. Reeves, second by Mr. Gillum. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you for your expediency. I understand you want to get the text by a certain time. We're not going to turn to Mr. Lawson, the Governance Committee.
Call the Governance Committee to order. Roll call, Mr. Secretary President.
Mr. Myron Lawson,
Present.
Dr. Leon Tarver II, Dr. Leroy Davis, Ms. Nadia Foster, Ms. Christy Reeves, Attorney Edwin Shorty.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Item number 3 is the adoption of the agenda. Are there any modifications to the agenda as printed? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for adoption. So moved by Board Member that Hilliard. And second, Board Member Davis, properly second by Board Member Tarver. Questions? Hearing none, all in favor, aye. Opposed, and motion carries. Item number 4, public comments. Are there any public comments pertinent to the agenda? Seeing no one approach the podium, we'll move to item number 5, action items. I'll entertain them in global. Item 5A, request approval for Digital Millennium Copyright Act Policy SUS. B, request for approval of campus free speech policy SUS. C, request of approval for non-academic due process policy SUS. These are kind of perfunctory, I think, to strengthening the policies that are existing. Do you want to address any of that, Council? In concert with legislative approvals, a request too. Anything else?
I think you hit the nail on the head. If there's questions, I can answer.
Okay, motion been made by Board Member Tarver, seconded by Board Member Davis. Questions? Hear none? All in favor, aye. Opposed, motion carries. 6, any other business need to come before the Governance Committee? If not, I entertain a motion for 7, adjournment. Moved by Reeves, consider it adjourned, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Tarver, Personnel Affairs Committee, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. President, roll call, please.
Dr. Leon Tarver II,
Here.
Ms. Christy Reeves, Mr. Raymond Fondell, Attorney Jody Amade, Reverend Samuel Tolbert, Dr. Orlando Williams, Attorney Edwin Shorty.
Present.
I believe you have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. The next item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. May I have a motion to do so? Been moved by Dr. Williams, seconded by Ms. Reeves. Thank you. Any questions? All of those in favor and known sign of aye. Those opposed, ayes have it. Item 4, public comments. Are there any public comments at this time on any agenda item before the committee? Hearing none, seeing none. We move on to item 5, action items as A, B, C. Request approval for personnel action for a soiree position. B, request approval of personnel action for SULC, 3 positions. Item C, request approval of personnel action for SUNO, 1 position. Can I get a motion in global to support that? Moved by Mr. Fondell. Yes. Yes, sir.
And it's regarding action item 5A1. And I just want to put the Chancellor on the record that first I want to congratulate the employee, but I want to make sure we're not going to lose him for our board meetings because he does a fantastic job. Do we get to keep him? I saw you. I vote no. Of course. All right. Good deal. Thank you.
Good observation on record. Huh? So it's been properly moved and seconded that we adopt all of these. No further questions. We have a motion in favor. Again by Mr. Fondell. Okay. All of those in favor, you know, on the sign of aye. Those opposed. So have it. We move to items 6, other business. The other business before the committee. Hearing none, we're on to adjournment. A motion, please. So moved by Dr. Williams and requires no second. Thank you very much. We adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. The full board is called to order. Roll call, Mr. President.
Attorney Edwin Shorty.
Present.
Dr. Rainey Whitfield, Attorney Jody Amity, Mr. John Bartholomew, Dr. Leroy Davis, Mr. Raymond Fondale Jr., Ms. Nadia Foster, Mr. Sam Gilliam, Mr. Richard T. Hilliard,
Present.
Mr. Myron Lawson,
Present.
Ms. Christy Reeves, Attorney Des Moines Rutledge, Ms. Ann A. Smith, Dr. Leon R. Tarver II,
Here.
Reverend Samuel Tolbert, Dr. Orlando Williams. You have a quorum.
Thank you, sir. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Moved by Mr. Rutledge, seconded by Mr. Fondale. Thank you. Are there any public comments? Any public comments? I know we have a few public comments. Mr. Zanders. We'll take Mr. Zanders first.
Good morning, honorable board members, President Shields, campus chancellor and guests. My name is Wanda Crawford. I'm the president of SUNO Alumni Association. I'm here today to comment on agenda item 6G, the dissolution of SUNO's foundation and the SUNO affiliation agreement. The Alumni Association is not in support of the dissolution of the SUNO Foundation. SUNO Foundation has been an integral part of SUNO with resources over the years by providing scholarships to students and successful bash events and many other endeavors. The association does not believe that this dissolution is in the best interest of SUNO, the students, and the alumni. We ask that you reconsider that agenda item. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Crawford. Also have comments from Mr. Zanders or Ms. Jefferson.
Mr. Sanders is coming.
Good morning, Chairman Shorty,
Good morning.
President Shields, and distinguished board members and guests. I'm the current president of the SUNO Foundation. And the SUNO Foundation has been in existence for 46 years. We have provided scholarships and support for the New Orleans campus during that time. We provided we were instrumental in getting our first endowed chair and other endowed professorships. We are definitely against the dissolution of our foundation. This would disrupt the university and the students and our foundation supporters. We are all under new leadership in this organization and also the university and the Institutional Advancement Office. The leadership has embraced collaboration with the University Alumni Association. We're working to improve campus image, programs, and definitely its funding. The university, as far as I can remember, has never had a written documentation as an affiliation agreement between the organizations. It was between mutual respect of the foundation and the university. In the last 3 years, the foundation has helped the university by giving almost $200,000 scholarship award. We've assisted in hiring a consultant to help with SACS accreditation. We've signed the written agreement for SACS accreditation. It's unbelievable to us why the chancellor and the board would want to discredit our relationship after all of these years by dissolving that same agreement. The SUNO Foundation directors are committed to improving both our operations and resource generation. This was evident by the foundation hiring the Education Foundation consultant to utilizing its report as we proceed in the future by updating our bylaws and incorporating best practices. Our annually sponsored fundraiser, postponed since COVID-19, is underway and may be the best year ever. The SUNO Foundation is looking for a prosperous future with the SUNO University.
Thank you, Ms. Jefferson. We appreciate your comments. Mr. Zanders.
With all respect to the officers of this historic board, this historic institution, I'm Attorney Willie Zanders. I'm a legal advisor for the SUNO Foundation. I hold in my hand a book about Grambling when I was there 50 years ago, where we protested for academic excellence. And I say today, I thank God that I'm here to say it's bigger than the SUNO Foundation. We're talking about the future of America. We're talking about the future of the Black community. We're talking about what's going on right now. And the SUNO Foundation was just a part of that. That was Dr. Jesse Stone. That was Dr. Emmett Bashful. That was 46 years ago. Our Grambling protest was 55 years ago. So next month, so here we are. Let's talk about something big. Let's look at what you just had with Dr. Tate, the same university that wouldn't let me in when Grambling kicked me out. But I say this, we're at a point in our history where we need the SUNO Foundation. Dr. Bashful, Dr. Stone were two of the most distinguished educators in America. Let's respect what they did. Let's figure out how we come together. You talk about affiliation agreements, let's come together. So for some reason, someone wants to take over the finances for the SUNO Foundation. Why? It's been around 46 years. Dr. Bashful is turning over in his grave. We shouldn't be fighting over this, ladies and gentlemen. Let's come up with a plan to make the foundation bigger, better. Let's help New Orleans. New Orleans is in a bad condition. Let's build. And I maintain whoever wanted to change this foundation, find some other priority. I was here last time when this gentleman talked about customer service at SUNO. Let's talk about retention. Let's talk about maintaining that nursing program. I was at Loyola with Dr. Frank. I worked there 18 years. There are things that need to be done, just like what you're doing. I maintain, let's use this as an experience. Thank God we've come this far, because after the Grambling experiment, we got millions of dollars for Southern and Grambling. Let's be thankful for that. Let's figure out how we come together. I wanted to come here and raise a little sand, but I said, no, let's just tell God, we thank you, we got this far. Let's come together. Whoever has this other agenda, go find something else to do.
Thank you, Mr. Zanders. Are there any other comments? I'm sorry, Frank Williams.
Well, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Chairman Shorty, President Shields, and the great University Foundation board. I'm a SUNO graduate. I've been affiliated with the foundation for a number of years. I've worked tirelessly basically to raise money over the years for the foundation, substantial resources. I've worked very close with the Chancellor the last couple of years. But more importantly, when SUNO was in financial straits a few years ago, our foundation gave over $200,000 basically to resolve its financial issues. I'm not sure if in fact the Southern System Foundation gave a penny in that regard. This foundation basically is an anchor within the New Orleans community. We've gotten the support of the mayor, we've gotten the support of Senator Joe Bowie, and a number of elected officials. But more importantly, this is about the students. It's not about basically policies at this point. It's more about what the students need, what the university needs in New Orleans to support it. There are a number of other issues basically we can take on, but I think at this point that what's being proposed basically is counterproductive to what's going on in New Orleans, but also counterproductive to the foundation resources. Foundation basically, it was in the process of raising substantial resources. And also too, there was communication that redirected resources that the foundation basically participating along with the SUNO staff and was basically directed directly to the University the System Foundation. Individuals in New Orleans basically were really disheartened that that move was made. I've had a relationship with individuals on the Baton Rouge, the Blue Cross Baton Rouge Foundation for a number of years. So I was told directly, and information is given to me basically that those resources are redirected. I think it's appalling basically when we use our efforts basically to support the students of the university and basically their issues basically to undermine SUNO's foundation basically, what has really caused the issue in New Orleans. Thank you very much and have a great day.
Thank you, sir, for your comments. Are there any other public comments? Any other public comments? Seeing none, we will turn to our special presentation. Mr. Ben Pugh.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, members of the board. It's my distinct pleasure to introduce to you and present to others Ms. Althea Bazile, a member of my staff. Ms. Althea Bazile began her journey with Southern University in 1973. She has served in various capacities at the university, including human resources, Comptroller's Office payroll, central receiving, and property. Ms. Bazile assumed the property director position in 2007 and then left for a brief period. She returned in 2016 when I had the good sense to ask her to return out of retirement to assist the university when we were having problems with state property. As the manager of central receiving, she and her staff are responsible for tagging and delivery of all purchases for the Baton Rouge landmass. Althea has been successful with all state certifications and annual audits since returning to the university. She is the mother of 3 sons, William, Edward, and Byron. I could use several superlatives to talk about Althea, who, by the way, carpooled with me when I first started working at the university in 1978. Althea is loyal, hardworking, possesses excellent customer service skills, and is an excellent supervisor. But above all, she loves Southern University. I'd like to present to some and introduce to others Ms. Althea Bazile.
Good morning to President Shields, board chairman, members of the board. I am very elated this morning because it gives me pleasure to get this above and beyond award. And I cannot just accept it for myself. My staff is 7, but we handle 2 departments, property and receiving. But we love the university. And this is not just my staff, this is my family. And we're showing love to each other. We don't believe in taking off from work because we figure we are not going to be able to do our job. So we service the landmass and we want to serve with the best that we can. And I challenge either one of you, if you would like to come visit our office to see that the work that we do on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis, we would truly appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah.
Know how much Ben people charging to ride with.
I was riding with her.
I know you weren't paying it.
Well, before we move on to our action items, we have a comment from Mr. Fondale. Gentlemen.
Also thanking the supervisor, Mr. Ben Pugh, and also those who came with her on today. It says a lot about who we are. These are the folks who are keeping the lights on, that are taking care of things throughout the university. For them to have an opportunity to come here to the board meeting and to be able to be recognized means an awful lot. And I think it means an awful lot to us here also. So again, thank you to all of them. I just wanted to say that.
Dr. Tarver. Okay, Mr. Rutledge.
Smith initiated this. You ought to see the smile. I'm sure everybody sees the smile on those people's faces when they're recognized. And I think it's something that we all certainly ought to do.
Thank you all. We'll now turn to our action items. Let's take action item A and B together. Request approval of minutes and committee reports and recommendations. Moved by Rutledge, second by Bartholomew. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? The action items are approved. Now we'll turn, okay. There are two Bs. I'll just make it the second B. Action. Mr. Gillum.
For the request, since you've got quite a concern about it, that action item 6, G and H would be discussed and acted on separately.
Yes, sir, certainly.
Thank
Yes.
Well, is that a motion, Mr. Gillum, so that means we'll dispose of the other item with the exception of.
If that's how I need to couch it, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So we have a motion on the floor to approve what we're going to call action item, the second B, C, D, E, and F in Globo. Is that correct, Mr. Gillum?
Yes, sir. That's
All in
it.
favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Those action items are approved. Now, if we will turn to action item G.
Okay.
Mr. Rutledge.
That if it's appropriate, that our counsel, Mrs. Blosh, as I appreciated, she was intimately involved in the drafting of a revised affiliation agreement to be signed by the SUNO Foundation and the institution. If she would give us an overview of what the revised affiliation agreement contained, and more importantly, what's the point of departure? I was under the impression, frankly, that we had a deal. And it seems now that we don't. Are you in a position to do that, Mrs. Bosch? Is that appropriate, Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir, it
Okay,
is.
Thank you.
Good morning, honorable board members. In April, I believe, of this year, the board directed my office to discuss with the foundation, the SUNO Foundation, a method of going forward, either to dissolve the relationship, to merge with the SUNO Foundation, or to merge with the System Foundation. From April until now, we've had extensive meetings with stakeholders from the SUNO alumni, as well as the SUNO Foundation, and in conjunction with the System Foundation. And what we, many different iterations were discussed and negotiated, and ultimately what we thought was ideal situation was to have a limited agreement, 3-year period, that would allow the SUNO Foundation to develop best practices, to see how the System Foundation performed and did their stewardships, have access to the System Foundation's employees that do the back office operations, that would take in gifts, be able to submit and give donation and 1099s and things of that nature. And then also to be able to use the software that is necessary for nonprofits. The back office employees and the software are things that the SUNO Foundation does not have at this time. And so the thought was, for a 3-year period, let the System Foundation help them grow, learn how to do better, get more donations, more funding, and then also have access to those back office services. And then after the 3-year period, the SUNO Foundation would be able to go forward on their own, hopefully, if they so choose. I think the issue with the SUNO Foundation was that they would not have control of the checkbook. And so in an effort to make sure that the SUNO Foundation could be comfortable in the proposal, we offered different variety of things that would allow them comfort, right? They would be the only ones to be able to pick the financial institution that they wanted the money to be held. They would be able to determine what type of account it would be, whether it be investment or just a deposit. They would be the only ones that could disperse funds, but it would go through the System Foundation. And the reason behind that is the System Foundation would need to have that in order to use those system softwares and for their employees to have access. Ultimately, I thought too that we were on the right path, and that we had a meeting of the minds. And the SUNO Foundation told us a couple of weeks ago that they were not in agreement.
Mr. Rutledge.
Okay, so I want to just make certain that I have some clarity about what we're being asked to do today, which frankly I'm prepared to support. So it's my understanding, you use the term merger, which I'll get to in just a second, but it's my understanding that what the purpose of the affiliation agreement is to permit the foundation, which is the SUNO Foundation, to represent to the public that they are affiliated with the Southern University system by way of Southern University at New Orleans, and are authorized to make those representations and raise money on their behalf. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
So we would not be quote, closing their foundation. But what we would be doing is terminating the affiliation agreement, which would prevent them from saying that they are affiliated with the Southern or are authorized to represent to the public that they are affiliated with the system by way of SUNO. Is that accurate?
That is accurate. And one clarification, the
Sure.
agreement that we suggested was not an affiliate agreement. There is already an affiliate agreement, and through the MOU that Ms. Jefferson referenced earlier, and also in the board's bylaws, the board recognizes the SUNO Foundation as an affiliate agreement, as an affiliated entity. What the agreement that we proposed was just a way forward to make sure that the SUNO Foundation could flourish.
But because we weren't able to arrive at a point of agreement, is the net effect of what we're being asked to do today is to terminate the affiliation agreement?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now it's my understanding that there are several things that precipitated this, one of which was a lack of audited financial statements, a lack of not filing their mandatory 990s with the IRS, as well as, for lack of a better word, sloppy bookkeeping. Is that accurate?
I will say I am not an expert in the financial area, but that there were deficiencies or it's my understanding there were deficiencies within the SUNO Foundation.
Is that accurate, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Okay. And so let's just shut this corn right on down to the cob. The reason why the reason that, from what I gather, that we do not have an agreement is because they want to continue to be able to issue paper checks, and they want to be able to choose the banking institution.
It's only the writing of the checks.
All right.
Because so the financial institution, they can already, under the proposed agreement, they can already have that discretion. And they, under the agreement, they are the only ones that can approve any disbursement, but they just would not, they would have to submit a form.
Now, I happen to serve on the board of trustees for the System Foundation. And so it's my understanding that we've moved away from paper checks and that payees receive payments via an ACH. And so, I would hate for us to terminate this affiliation agreement because they can't write a check. But I'm prepared to vote for it because we have gone, Mr. Sanders, this is not a back and forth. The public comment is over. Mr. Sanders, the public comment is over. The public comment is over. Mr. Chairman, will you direct him to be seated or either have
Mr. Sanders, the public commentary time is over, sir. Please have a seat, sir. Please have a seat, sir. Please have a seat, sir.
And so our only issue is the ability for them to issue a paper check.
Or to have the authority to issue even if it's electronic funds, they want it to be the one to control.
But it's also my understanding that the agreement, they are the only individuals who are authorized to make disbursements from the account, right?
Correct. Yes, sir.
So they're not losing any control.
No, sir.
Okay, I'm done.
Ms. Smith.
Thank you. I am concerned about the entire process because I've gotten so many calls from the New Orleans area where they are genuinely concerned about losing their originality of the foundation itself from 46 years. That's number one. And they are explaining to me as a board member that perhaps they have not been as active as they could have been of recent years, but they are willing to regroup and try to bring their foundation giving and receiving to to the foundation because they do not want to lose their foundation. So for that reason, and I do understand that for 5 years, we have talked about at this board meeting that we are trying to move toward back office operations. And that's something that when I came aboard, the governor asked us as a board and as a university to look at back office operations. And I agree with that. I agree wholeheartedly with it. But before we shut this down, or before we discontinue or dissolve the right for Southern University of New Orleans not to have control, full control, I think we should take a close look at it, because the leadership in New Orleans, that's including your senators, your other leaders, they are unhappy at this point about what's going on and what's trying to be approved. And that's why I wanted to express this today. And this morning, some of your New Orleans leaders have also called this morning and asked us to please don't rush into this. That's all they're asking. Don't rush into it, because they don't want to lose an original foundation that they were the probably one of the first to have. So I'm going to say, yes, I'm ready to move forward with it. I do approve back office operations, but I don't think that we should rush into it until each board member is totally familiar with what you are voting on and what you are voting for. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. And before I turn to Mr. Fondell, I would like to address what Ms. Smith said. These conversations started in February. Ms. Blosh has been going back and forth with the SUNO Foundation since which month?
April.
So I don't think we're rushing into it. There have been several drafted amendments to the agreements that all of the parties have been involved in negotiations with. So it's not anything that's happened in the last 30 to 60 days. Mr. Fondell.
Part of what my questioning has to do with is just finding out a little bit more information. I know Ms. Blanchet has given us some information, and I heard some information during public comments. How can we find a resolve to this? Is there a resolve? What is the one sticking point, or is it two sticking points that can be worked through with regards to this? I saw a revised document that was, I believe, was sent to all of us that spoke in terms of the foundation in New Orleans willing to have, I think it was 2 to 4% putting the money into the account. Is the only thing that we're speaking of is the autonomy to write checks. I think Mr. Rutledge addressed that as far as ACH. You know, I know we have representatives, Mr. Williams is here, and I just would like to hear from him to kind of find out. He's on the foundation. Now, I've heard our council speak, but I believe if they're here, you know, he spoke in public comments with a limited amount of time. Can they just tell us what it is that's keeping us from putting this deal together? And I would ask Mr. Williams if he could come up and just please tell us.
Mr. Fondell, before we get there, we've got other board members who want to make some comments.
Okay, all right. At some point, once that's been concluded.
And
Dr. Tarver.
Since I was next on that list, I too would like to hear what he has to say, because the overall statement that was made by Ms. Jefferson did not get to the specific points we need to get to in order to resolve this matter. And I think we all need to be in agreement before we do this, take that final action. And I'd at least like to hear the other side of that, so we can make it a more intelligent decision.
Certainly, sir.
Dr. Tarver was making the same argument that I want to make. This is a foundation that's been around, and these folk have driven a long way to discuss this matter. And if we don't extend the privilege, I will feel like we've slighted them.
Right.
And I think they should enjoy the privilege of discussing. If it's not an audit issue, we don't need that in the public domain, that they have audit problems. And the other piece, we took 2 years to come up with a climate control contract. So if it takes another month, I don't think that's unreasonable. We've taken more than months to come up with contracts. And secondly, Chancellor, when we, if we move on this motion, Is this good for the goose, good for the gander? Is this the way we operate throughout the system? And are you certifying that all foundations within the system comply to what we're asking them to comply to right now?
So, to answer your question, what I was tasked to do was to come up with a way to get the SUNO Foundation in line with best practices. This is a limited agreement. If other affiliated entities need assistance to get to best practices and get to a place that supports the students and the institutions that is the purpose of the foundation, then this is an agreement that could be for other entities. There's nothing that would prohibit it, because the focus should be on the foundation, and those entities are to support the university and its students.
So we're focusing now on the SUNO campus, not the other foundations. And quiet as kept, I don't know if I get an expense check when I get it, if I get it, because I give it back. I don't think my expense check is HCH. So maybe we need to comply with some of the things that we're asking the foundations on the cusp on. I think that's good. I like ACH, but we don't get ACH checks.
I've gotten ACH from the foundation.
No, I'm talking about from reimbursement.
And and I'd like, if I could make one other point. So what's before the board today, the unaffiliation can always be reaffiliated, right? The board can, if should the board vote to dissolve the relationship and to unaffiliate, should the board decide once the foundation is doing what it's planned to doing or whatever, then that can be decided by this board.
Dr. Tarver?
Yeah. My sense of this is, one, such organizations are required by state law to provide financial statements to this Board of Supervisors in compliance with our policy and to the legislative auditor's office. That doesn't address the whole question of whether or not it was a good audit or a bad audit. It was a question of the audits being done. And apparently the organization did some recent contracts to produce audits for the last couple of years. I think the issue had been over a long period of time that had not been done. Is that right? Simply reporting the documents to the board and to the legislative auditor's office. Problem with that is if you don't provide that, the legislative auditor's office could impose a dissolution of this matter because it's a state requirement.
Mr. Williams, come forward, sir.
You speak again. For the record, we have provided copies of financial statements and audits to the board on numerous occasions. For the last 10 years that I've been affiliated with the foundation, we have had unqualified opinions. All our 999s have been filed on time. So I'm not sure where this information, this misinformation is coming from, okay? We can also basically provide you with those documents if necessary to the full board. We have provided you communications during the time we were negotiating this agreement. And I'm just hopefully it has fallen on deaf ears. If you look at the litany of things we have outlined, everything says that basically we have provided, and also to somebody mentioned basically, I think Dr. Tarver talked about the legislative orders. We've never been sanctioned by legislative orders. Anything they've requested, we filed on time. And if you look at the record, everything is there. So I'm really appalled that the discussion about unqualified or qualified or unqualified opinions have not been basically reviewed by this board. But more importantly, basically, this information basically is unnecessary. And this is a public meeting. And this goes beyond the environment of this board meeting, okay? Number one. Number two, the issue about the SUNO Foundation. We have basically talked to the Chancellor. We have supported the Chancellor since he's been there. We have supported every Chancellor. And without any problems, we have provided a number of scholarships over the years. We have made addressed emergency requests by the Chancellor, by students, but also by instructors basically in terms of carrying out their academic agendas or whatever. So I'm just baffled why some minor thing about issuing checks has come before this board basically will basically put an upheaval in our operation. But more importantly, think about the impact. It's New Orleans now, Shreveport next, okay? Mr. Gilliam, I guarantee you, because the chat I've heard, basically, we are the guinea pigs for this pursuit. And I'm hopefully that basically we will provide the board directly any information that you need basically to understand what's going on. You know, to go against the Alumni Association, which is the body of the university, is really appalling or whatever. It's almost saying, look, we don't care what they say, we don't care what New Orleans does, but also too, like I said, we have all support of a number of elected officials in New Orleans. I have raised money, substantial money. I have worked with the university over the years. As a matter of fact, I was Vice Chancellor in Shreveport, worked with Mr. Gilliam for a number of years, and actually basically resolved a number of issues for that campus. And Mr. Gilliam basically will attest to that. So more importantly, I've been committed to this university, the system or whatever. And like I said, I'm appalled basically that this is happening without really sitting down basically with individuals basically who understand systems. And look, writing an ACH check is not an issue or whatever. But also too, the other thing I'm appalled that we work with a major minority financial institution. I'm not sure if you guys, if this board or the foundation works with any minority financial institution. If not, I think you should reconsider some of your policies. And if major institutions basically can support minority institutions, why can't financial institutions? Why can't we? Thank you. Yes.
When you speak of financial institution, you're speaking in terms of the bank that you put your money in.
That's right.
And it is a minority bank in the New Orleans area.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. And you're saying that our institution is not a minority owned, where they're asking you to put the money at is not minority owned.
As far as I know, I might be misspeaking or mistalking, whatever.
So my question was, as I asked you to come up here, what is keeping us from making this deal? It's gotten to this point to where it's here before us.
Yeah.
Is there one or two things? You're in agreement about a majority of the things that were brought to you, correct?
Yeah, our basically proposal basically speaks to those issues. The only issue basically is being able to basically disperse our own funds, number one.
Okay.
I mean, setting up a system with HCH is really not an issue, okay? In terms of, dispersing checks. The only issue basically is that we want to make sure that we can control our own resources, because the financial institutions that basically are the foundations that give us money want to make sure they're under our control. And they don't want to basically use us to actually send resources to other foundations or whatever. I've been told that about a number of foundations who are willing to support us, but they're holding off at this point until we resolve this agreement.
Okay. So again, I want to be clear. You want to have the autonomy to be able to, if you take money in, you want to be able to write checks out or disperse the money and be held accountable for those actions as you have been done in the past.
Clearly stated, sir.
Okay. You agree with the foundation as far as the fee proposal. Were you in agreement with that part of it also?
We modified it because we thought it was a little expensive, basically because they're not doing everything they suggested.
Okay.
So, I mean, we're willing to work with them, but also too, the actual backroom operations, I've worked with organizations basically where you have satellite operations and basically they tie in basically and use resources or either systems basically that house other places. Why can't we do that with this foundation?
Okay, all right. Some of my colleagues may have some questions for you also.
Yes.
I think maybe you alluded to the fact that there was a donation to SUNO, I think the Blue Cross donation that wasn't allowed to go to the foundation. I just wanted more context around that, what the implication was, what you were alluding to.
Yeah, I'll be very specific about that. We work with the SUNO staff basically to develop proposals and also identify opportunities for funding. And I had a number of conversations with one particular individual on the foundation board or Blue Cross board or whatever. And the issue became one of basically, this is basically a SUNO operation, number one, okay? Number two, why would the money be diverted to the Baton Rouge System Foundation when SUNO basically has worked with the system, with SUNO staff or whatever, to develop proposals, provide information or whatever, and why would it basically be diverted? So it should become one of basically, it's my understanding that there was disparaging comments made about our foundation, okay, about audits and things of that nature, which basically gave organizations basically the lack of trust about our foundation, which I think basically is reprehensible.
So there wasn't a question about the funding going back to SUNO.
No,
it was just where the money was going to sit.
That's right.
I will comment. I ran a foundation for a long time. it is very attractive to the foundation leadership to put the money, especially a $400,000 investment, into an organization that has far greater resources. And so I could see a instance, because I'm looking at your 990s right now, your resources are less than that. And so I could see that it would make it a more attractive a proposal to receive those funds to go through the larger foundation. So I was just trying to understand if the money was misused, planned to be misused, or.
A lot of foundations will give certain allocations. The total amount of money is not necessarily deposited at one time. So basically they could be reassured, basically, if they give a small allocation, that basically we carry out our fiduciary responsibility. I've run foundations before, so I understand how it works. A major foundation, larger than this one, and larger than the Baton Rouge System Foundation. So I'm pretty familiar how these operations work.
Dr. Williams, I apologize for passing you.
I accept your apology. As a proud alumna of Southern University, New Orleans, I do take issue to what you just said, that those accusations are not good. I mean, we can't use the words misuse and all of that when you all have done what you're supposed to do. I think the problem was maybe a year or two went by without a director, and there was an opportunity at that time. But the question that we have, and let's just take all of that other stuff that was said prior to this, about misuse and this and that has never been an issue of Southern University, New Orleans, ever.
Never.
And I'm a proud supporter. I have a question. What do you need us to do to make this happen? That's the question I think Des Moines has asked, Raymond has asked. All of us are trying to figure out what is the issue that we can make this work. And I'm with Myron. If it does not work today, it is not like anybody's gonna die because it doesn't happen today. We can make this work and make it work correctly without rushing into anything, or without both sides being clear as to what is going on. So what is it that we need to do to make this work?
First thing I think, basically, you suspend your decision on basically the disaffiliation issue. Number one, I think basically if cooler heads can prevail at this point, we could basically avail ourselves basically to the backroom operation remotely, number one. But also number two, basically maintain our autonomy to make sure, because we're basically maintaining our autonomy because we have to support our alumni and we're representing them in the student body in the university, but also the New Orleans community as a whole. New Orleans is the only public HBCU. I mean, SUNO is the only public HBCU in New Orleans, okay? And typically, it's Xavier, it's Dillard, but SUNO has not gotten the recognition that it requires or needs or whatever, for whatever reason. And we want to make sure that the community understands basically that we can control our own resources. We don't need Big Brother basically watching over us and guiding us at any point in time, because we have the expertise in New Orleans basically to manage ourselves the correct way.
This is for Mr. McClinton. In the university's financials, don't we typically include audited financial statements or financial statements from the foundations? And in answering that question, do you have any financial statements from SUNO included in there?
Normally the only foundation that's included is the one for the Southern University system. We do have the financial statement from SUNO for 2021. Because that's one of the things the auditors requires us to get from those campuses. We received it on 3/9/22, the one for 2021.
What about prior years?
Well, I'll need to check that, but I should be able to tell you in a couple of minutes. I have someone checking it.
I think Mrs. Reeves made a valuable point in terms of the attractiveness of being associated with the System Foundation. All of the other campuses, in fact, I'm told that they disperse 90% of Shreveport's funds. The law center, the other constituent members of the system are housed there, and it has not inhibited them in any way from receiving funds, or in fact, I think it enhances their attractiveness. I don't see this as diminishing your autonomy or independence whatsoever. It allows you to operate in compliance It allows you to go out and represent and raise as much money as you can and direct where the resources go. But what we're trying to do is to provide a systematic approach. And I think Shreveport, if they're not totally included, they should be. All right. I'm not bashful about that.
There you go.
I think we ought to, if it's good for SUNO, if it's good for the Law Center, if it's good for the Baton Rouge campus, which are all housed in the System Foundation, it ought to be good for everybody. And that way we can make certain that everybody is in compliance at every point of the register. But it does not inhibit, it does not take away your independence. You direct where the resources go, not the System Foundation. You do. And so I want to correct the record there. It's not taking anything from you other than providing you with some much needed support.
Which System Foundation. Typically, we have been the go-to foundation when the System Foundation basically has not stepped up to the plate, to be perfectly honest with you, in timely disbursements and giving students.
That's not accurate.
That is accurate.
It is not.
That is accurate. Trust me.
It is not.
I've worked with 3 or 4 different chancellors, so I know history of the relationship.
I chaired the System Foundation Board of Directors. I happen to see a person with experience that's never at the mercy of one with an opinion. I know what I'm talking about.
And I do too, sir. Okay.
And so, Mr. Chairman, I'm ready to move. I'm ready to move on this item. I don't know where the board is, but it seems that we are dancing around this. At the end of the day, I want my position to be clear. I want everybody to be in compliance, and I want us to treat everybody the same. And if we're able to do this, I wanted to do it in such a way that they maintain their independence to direct their gifts and resources wherever they want them to go. But you guys need some help. You've not acknowledged that.
No, we have acknowledged that the chair of the foundation acknowledged that basically we have engaged consultants to look at our operation while I was in transition with the new chancellor or whatever. And basically we are complying basically with their recommendations.
I do want to say that as a SUNO alum like Dr. Williams, it makes sense to me that back office operations be run by the main foundation. That doesn't take your autonomy. That actually enhances your ability to focus on raising money and not having to deal with the accounting and other things that go along with dealing with the day-to-day banking. And since we brought up the timeliness of reimbursement, I do think it appropriate to ask Chancellor Ammons about the timeliness of reimbursements that you have had from the SUNO Foundation since you took office as Chancellor. Dr. Ammons.
All right, so what I want to do is say that I read with great interest the report of the consultant, and I made a recommendation to the foundation based on the recommendations that came out of the consultant. My position is that the foundation would be integrated into the university, and we would provide the back office operations and assist them in the timely processing of requests for disbursements. Those have been areas of discontent with the foundation. There have been times when we've had to spend our own money and get reimbursed because we couldn't get a disbursement in a timely fashion.
And what was the lag time on those first sets of reimbursements after you became Chancellor?
I don't remember the lag time, but it was not timely.
And did you have to reach out to the main foundation?
Well, and yes.
Okay. Mr. Fondell.
Also for Dr. Ammons. Whenever we go to our board meetings out there, we are receiving checks. You know, at most of the campuses, we're receiving checks. When you get those checks, are those checks put in the SUNO's foundation, or where would those funds be put in? I guess that's what my question is. If we go down there, and like this check that was presented today, where are those funds going to go? Are they going to go in your foundation in New Orleans, or where are they going to be deposited at? I should ask.
System Foundation.
So whenever we come down and we get a check, those funds are not given to your foundation, they're directed to the Systems Foundation.
There are
Correct.
some checks that do go to the SUNO Foundation. The
Oh,
larger ones go to the System Foundation.
Okay, and maybe that's part of the question I'm asking as to why is it going there? I heard Ms. Reeves just say that they didn't have a lot of money in the account, but I'm looking at us getting your university is getting $400,000, and it's going to bypass the foundation that set up there. I think they've agreed, if Mr. Williams has said that they are going to allow the foundation to handle the backroom operations. Is that correct? You've allowed that? And even at that, they're still going to process the 4% there. So I'm saying that every time that we've gone down there, in my 10 years here, all of those checks and the ones that have come have been bypassed. So maybe they have no way of building their, excuse me, wait, let me finish. I'll let you finish. Let me finish. Just trying to figure out, why are we bypassing the one that you already have? And if from this point on, if they're going to agree with us, if we can find be able to resolve this, will we be able to put those checks that come in into that account, even though they're still going to be managed through the foundation? Go right ahead.
Mr. Fondell, I don't want to give you the impression that I was about to cut you off. I thought you had reached a breaking point, but I wouldn't be rude enough to cut you off, Mr. Fondell. That wasn't my intent. All
I'm saying is this can be resolved. I mean, it's just a matter of us trusting each other. I don't know what's going on. We got two. Let me finish.
No, I had started and I took a breath and you started. So now I'm back. You threw me off on what I wanted to say. I wanted to address what you said about back office operations. It is not my understanding that the foundation can account for funds that they do not house. You can't have it where the SUNO Foundation has money and then the main foundation handles the back office operations and they are not in possession of the funds. That's not the way accounting works, Mr. Fondell.
Is there a way to resolve that, Mr. Williams?
Major organizations, financial operations of major organizations, okay? Multi-billion dollar operations. And I've seen basically situations where you have outliers or either basically organizations basically that are outposts or whatever, where they tie into financial systems, basically into reporting with the proper internal controls. So this is not really beyond our ability to work through that situation, okay?
Because they're going to pay the foundation a percentage of the money that you have in your account. You've agreed to that point already.
That's correct.
Okay. So with that, they're going to guide you through this process. Are you willing to let them assist you moving forward at each step?
Without a doubt, we know our agreement that we propose articulates that.
All right, you have the mic here. I mean, now you get an opportunity to speak, and that's all that we ask.
Yeah,
it's just information.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I'm off the mic.
Mr. Lawson, and then we're going to call the question on this matter.
Okay. We're in the right church, almost on the right pew. I don't see what harm is going to do to delay this and include what Attorney Rutledge suggested, and that I certainly suggested, that we make this good for the goose and the gander. It's no sense in playing around with it. If it's good for New Orleans, it'll be good for the foundations. And we lay this over until next month and call for a vote up or down one way or the other. That's my recommendation. Once we call for the motion, I'm going to make a substitute.
I agree, reemphasize what I said. Let's not get into a vote that we're not totally clear of. So I would go along with Myron, Mr. Lawson, by saying, give us the opportunity to make sure that each of our board members are aware and fully understands what they're doing. Thank you.
Mr. Fondell.
Even to the point where it may include some of us being involved in this negotiation process. You know, there are folks that are on here that have experience, like Mr. Rutledge and others on here, who may be able to sit down and come up with some agreement. We have a bunch of lawyers on this board. Let's just figure it out. It can be worked out. To make it
the problem. That's the problem, Fondell.
well, that's why I'm saying something now.
Good till you said that. Hey, man.
We should be able to work this out.
Okay, well, Mr. Gillum and then Dr. Tarver.
Thank you very much. Mr.
Mr.
Chair.
Gilman.
Now it's obvious, you can see why I asked that this motion, I'm sorry, did you have a phone?
And then I looked at you.
I said Mr. Gilliam and then Dr. Tarver. I'm sorry, sir.
So you would be, and I can defer. He's my senior by a day or two.
Dr. Tarver.
You got over on that. Pardon this reference. I'm sitting here thinking about all of this. And I'm mindful of the fact that I was the one who set up the system in the manner in which it's set up many years ago, in which we extended to every campus the offer of having their own separate foundation or combinations thereof. All of the campuses on the landmass here, 3 of them, declined just to have their own foundation. They said, we'd rather be a part of the Systems Foundation. And so we changed the foundation to accommodate that. And we involved the chancellors of every campus and their financial officer. And so we never, ever had this problem, ever before. This foundation preceded us. It was the oldest foundation. And we recognized and accepted presence, and we didn't have a problem with them. Shreveport was the only other campus that decided at that time that they would have such a foundation. Now, I think what's happened under our former chairman's leadership, the back office operations concept evolved into what we have today. But it was all designed to increase efficiency and higher productivity. And I think that's what everyone wants. We are so very close at this moment to either destroying a large part of our heart south of us or moving aggressively forward and laying behind us the problems and keeping us apart. That ought not happen. I support the idea that if we've come this far and worked this hard and this long, and we're just right here, then we ought to do something more about that. And if that means buying more time, then we should do that and get the resources in place necessary to resolve this matter. And I'm sure Dr. Shields, President Shields, help provide leadership in that regard. And I don't think we do that without someone at that level doing this. I think he's an excellent person in the right position to be able to help do that on behalf of this system, working to get it done. I think it can be done by our next board meeting. And Mr. Williams, since we're so close and you see all of this so clearly, perhaps you can make an additional effort with your board members to get to this crossroads and bring it together.
About also too, we also represent the students and also alumni association. It's a package deal.
Yeah,
Okay.
but we all do.
You're right.
Okay, that's not even an issue.
Okay, thanks.
It's the technical piece we're getting to, Mr. Chairman. I think that's got to happen. We can't fall apart because of this, because I don't think right now all of us are comfortable in where we are in this thing.
Mr. Sam?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Well, I think it's obvious now why I asked that we separate these initially from that global motion that we were going to do. Because there are obviously some concerns and some issues that were a big question mark for me. There have been a lot of skill sets, a number of skill sets represented here that I just don't have. The accounting background, the legal background. And I've heard some things because when I saw this on the board agenda a few months ago, the question for me was why and how? And even at this point, no one has completely answered totally for me and comprehensively the how or the why are we doing this? I get the idea. And maybe it's because, I'm 300 miles away from New Orleans. The idea is that I don't have a dog in this fight. What I do, obviously. And basically, the issue I have is just bare fairness, just brute fairness and honesty with all of these organizations. And as I said, I do not have those skill sets that I've heard represented here today, but here's one that I do have, hopefully. And that's a commonsensical one. The idea is, Dr. Talbot touched on it. Al's gonna make a lot of money. He's gonna raise a lot of money in New Orleans. The system is. I didn't mean to call him out. But let me tell you what you risk losing. You risk losing a lot of goodwill. You risk taking our stakeholders in the New Orleans community who have worked and supported this institution for 47 years and saying to them, look, we don't value you and we don't value your contribution to the university over these 47 years, and that isn't good. And guess what? Once you lose that goodwill, you're not going to get it back. Thank you. I'm not preaching to the choir. The idea is this too, you lose something, it's hard to get it back. You lose the School of Architecture, you don't get it back. You lose the goodwill of the people in New Orleans. And guess what? You don't get it back easily. And maybe the approach that's being proposed is, I know it sounds financially sound, but does it respect the dignity and the contribution? I'm sitting here thinking back to 47 years. Now, some of you who, even before you were born, we had the venerable Dr. Emmett Bashville. This little organization was very close and near and dear to his heart. We had Dr. Jex, and I'm going to invoke some of those iconic names. Dr. Jex, who struggled and toiled with this little organization. You even had Dr. Spikes, who we sent down there because the institution was troubled and was going through some time. I could go on. There's a litany of names of people who were sent there. Gerald Peoples, to some extent. We have some who are still, most of the names that I mentioned are gone, but we still have some who are still with us. Gloria Moultrie, people who die, and even Joe Bowie, who are just supportive of this campus and this. We don't need to do, yeah, we're gonna make some money, Dr. Davis. We can raise a whole lot of money, but we can lose a whole lot in the process, in the long term. That's basically my statement. I appreciate your tolerance for allowing me. Now, the idea was total transparency. I stated to my chancellor, as he would say, because I'm always above board with him. I'm always truthful with him. As Cornel West says, you always want to tell the truth, even if you have to do it with a smile and style, but you tell it and you go with it. I'm ready to go.
After you finish, I'm sorry.
Okay, sure. The ideas I mentioned to my chair was that, I stand in solidarity with the foundation and SUNO, and I want them to know that, and the people who support. I'm finished, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your tolerance.
Mr. Lawson for a motion.
Yeah, I move that we lay items, G and H over until next meeting, and that we go back and ask that it be tweaked and come back with a meeting of the minds, and that whatever motions that imply to impact New Orleans be inclusive of all the foundations throughout the system is my motion that we suspend these motions until next month and bring back another recommendation to the body.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Items G and H are postponed to the next meeting. And Ms. Blosh will go back to the drawing board for the 8th time. We'll now turn to the resolutions. Resolutions of the board.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our resolutions for condolences, Mr. Alvin Allen Jr. family. Mr. Alvin Allen Jr. is a proud alumnus of Peabody Magnet High School in Alexandria, Louisiana, class of 1979. He received the BS degree in computer science at Southern University and A&M College in 1983, received the master's in computer science from Stevens Institute of Technology in New Jersey. He is a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, He carried on his love for technology as a computer science professor for 27 years until retirement at his beloved Southern University. Mr. Allen spent over 35 years as a DJ known as DJ Al. He passed away on August 5th, 2022. Mrs. Ruth Lewis Crawford family. Mrs. Ruth Lewis Crawford earned a BA degree in elementary education at Southern University. In addition to her studies at Southern, Miss Lewis earned the MA degree from Teachers College at Columbia University. She was an educator in the East Baton Rouge Parish School System for 19 years, and she joined the faculty of Southern University and served in the College of Education until her retirement in May of 1980. She was a true example of a leader. She was an active member of Phi Delta Kappa Professional Fraternity in Education and devoted member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. She passed away on August 3rd, 2022. Mr. Edward Jasper Massingberg Jr. family. Mr. Massingberg Jr., affectionately called June, earned a Bachelor of Arts degree in education in 1958 at Southern University and A&M College in Baton Rouge. He began his professional career at Southern University, where he served in many capacities. He enjoyed a long and distinguished career with Southern University and retired on July 30th, 2003, after 45 years of service. He passed away on Tuesday, August 16th, 2022. Miss Ursula T. Ransberg, JD LLM. Miss Ransberg graduated from Scotlandville Magnet High School in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. She continued her education at Southern University, Baton Rouge, receiving a Bachelor of Science in Agriculture Economics and a Master's of Public Administration. She received the Juris Doctorate from Southern University Law Center and a Master's of Laws in Agricultural Law from the University of Arkansas. She was employed with Southern University Law Center as a Campus Safety and Clery Act Coordinator, Title IX Deputy Coordinator. She was also a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Those are the resolutions, Mr. Chair.
I'd like to add that Ms. Ransberg was a 2002 Southern University Law Center graduate, one of my classmates and a dear friend, and she will be sorely missed. And her mother and father were both Southern alum as well. Can I have a motion to approve the resolutions? Offered by Mr. Bartholomew, second by Mr. Lawson. All in favor, say aye. Any nays? The resolutions are adopted. We'll now turn to our President's report.
Good morning. I'll be relatively brief here with some observations. First, I want to mention to the board with regard to the A&M agenda, in an effort to prod me and the university, I'm going to try to make sure that we report updates, very brief, on our efforts at each of the board meetings, so that you see that there's progress being made. I do think it's especially important to thank Chancellor McMeans, because he was very engaged in the planning on this project over the last few months. I called him before I was officially in my role and asked him if I could share his name with President Tate as to be the lead on this, and he graciously agreed. And I think the success of the week's activities are directly attributable to Chancellor McMeans' efforts, as well as a lot of other people, but certainly his leadership. I want to speak on some a little nitty-gritty thing that speaks to operational effectiveness. And if you see a little extra bounce in Mr. McClinton's step these days, it's because of cash flow. And let me explain why. A year ago, only about 50% after the 2-week point of the start of classes were paid. And this year, about 90% of them are paid. And that makes a significant difference. I will defer to Dr. Sahu to give a more detailed enrollment update, but that's a significant step for the SUBR, and acknowledging that it's Dr. Pugh, Mr. McClinton, Dr. Sahu, all the student affairs, financial aid, et cetera, that make that happen across the organization. But it was, I think, an important milestone and standard setting for this campus. Other work that's going on, to give the board a heads up, because I've been prodded by a couple, we have begun to sort of gather, look at, and develop a process to review our vision and mission statements, and working with the foundation to make sure that we align with the capital campaign consultants, and preparing that for robust discussion by this board. I think it's also important to note that this body approved the capital outlays program. We did that in a very timely way. We put it on this agenda anticipating there might be some bumps, and that we could revisit in October and submit the report to the Board of Regents and the appropriate governing bodies by November 1st. So we are officially ahead of schedule on that. Next week, I will be making an overall presentation to the Board of Regents about all our projects for not just capital outlay, but our fiscal position. And my thanks to Mr. McClinton and his team and all the chancellors for the timely work they did, both on the capital outlay programs and also on preparing, I think, a very strong statement for the Board of Regents. That is important because it puts us in a position to be very strong advocates for our budgets and capital outlay, and developing a strategy, working with our government relations office to do that. And so I stay tuned. We will be more aggressively fashioning an approach of advocacy for our legislative agenda. I do want to, so I have three sort of important overarching mission this year, obviously student outcomes, and also enhanced community engagement. I'd like to focus on the intentional and robust engagement with external stakeholders. I want to commend our Career Services Office and the support that we're getting from the foundation for our work with business and industry. In the last few weeks, we've been in talks with Exxon, Enbridge, Baker Hughes, Alliant, Capital One, Dow, and Chubb to enhance our relationships with all of those folks. In the coming weeks, I'll be at the White House. Next week, I'll be at the HBCU White House Conference to support us. And following that, the Congressional Black Caucus. I've also met with a group of engineering alumni society who want to be very supportive of our engineering programs. So we're moving forward on all those fronts across the system. As you can see from the reports of the foundation work at SUSLA, et cetera, we're marching down the path, I think, in a positive way. So with that, I'll conclude and turn it over to my colleagues.
Mr. Fondell has a question.
Mr. Gillen.
Thank you.
Mr.
Mr. President, please, we need in Shreveport. What's the update? What's the progress on the chancellor search on the Shreveport campus?
Absolutely. So by Monday, I'll have a revised list of the search committee and we'll be proceeding accordingly.
Have we moved to the process of actually publicizing at least an announcement of the position?
Not yet. That the search committee needs to be formed, and I hope in the next couple of weeks we'll be able to make that announcement.
Okay. The question I'm asking is, and of course, we defer, as president, we defer to your judgment on that, but I guess I'm asking, you know, what's the rationale for waiting until the embodiment of the search committee to develop the job announcement? But
We can put out a draft, but I would, and certainly announce that
are you
there's an
depending on the
opening.
search committee to assist with the drafting?
They,
of the-
they ought to have input on it. That's been my experience.
Okay. My experience has been just the opposite. Most of the people, depending upon the composition of it, they aren't gonna know how to spell chancellor, but that's neither here nor there. I defer to you.
Quick question.
Thank you. Mr. President, I do appreciate you recognizing Mr. McClinton for, you know, for having a pep in his step, for having more money available. But I bring notice to our students and getting more students here that we have some challenges with equity with regards to our recruiting department, and we're challenged there. And I know we're down to perhaps either one or two recruiters that are expected to be at the backbone of bringing students to our university here throughout, not just in the Baton Rouge area, but really throughout this nation as they travel. They have some challenges there. I'm more than sure that y'all may be aware of them. And I'm hoping that we as a board and you as a president can address the equity challenges that they have. We have folks in this.
I'm not sure what you mean by equity.
Pay.
Oh.
When I say equity, that's a nice way of saying making sure they get paid for what it is that they're doing. Mr. Bob Renee here served in the recruiting department for how many years, Mr. Renee? Close to 20, 30 years? Right. And he's probably aware of some of the challenges that were going on when he was there that continue on to this day. And I would hope, and I'll follow up to make sure that we are doing the things that are necessary to have a team. A few months ago, we had all our recruiters. Each one of our chancellors came before this board and spoke with regards to what they needed as far as recruiting goes. And at the heart of that, and at the heart of it is just having people in place and making sure that, you know, that they're being paid properly. And I say that upon Mr. McClinton and us having more funds now, that we can make sure that we're in line with taking care of those folks that are in those departments and even other departments that are out there that may not have been brought up to par. Yes, we have had success in getting more funds here throughout this system. And yes, we have addressed some of the pay raises with regards to our professors, but there's still other folks in the system that are just as important. And I would like for us to make sure that we are looking at, in particular, recruiting, and then move on from that point to other particular departments.
Okay, so there's two things. It's the overall budget. So if we're going to do more for compensation across the board, I'm talking about cash flow, knowing how much we have in advance. So number two, about 10 days ago, I had a conversation with at least with regards to the SUBR campus, and the other chancellors will have to speak to their campuses, and asked for a plan that if I found $500,000 to invest in our recruitment efforts, how it would be utilized. I expect to have that plan shortly. This is a direct result of conversations I've had both in visits to other sites in the state, Lake Charles, Lafayette in particular, that I've made visits to, and listened to alumni, and my own observations about the resources it takes to have on the ground to address our recruitment needs, both in the short term and the long term. The last thing I tell you is that through the good work of one of our staff members, we now have, I think, an $11 million boost to our Upward Bound programs, which addresses the very population, I think, for the longer term, middle school and early high school. So this is not something I have not spent some time thinking about and committing some resources to.
All right, but obviously you're addressing these issues. I just wanted to bring them up at this particular point in time so they can be made public, so that we can work toward resolving it and moving forward in a positive manner. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Fondell. Mr. Lawson?
And I wanted to comment on what my dear colleagues Mr. Gilliam talked about, and we've shared that conversation about the sense of urgency to address the matter. And I understand also you being very deliberate because that's important too, but we have to find a balance in the selection of a chancellor. I don't know how Dr. Penning is able to keep all those balls in the air that he's keeping in there. He's doing a phenomenal job in getting that done, but we need him here. And we need him full-time here, and he's full-time there. And I don't see how he does it, but thanks for him being able to do it. But I echo the sentiments of my colleague. There is a sense of urgency, and if this board, Mr. Chair, needs to call a special board meeting to sanction, support, whatever efforts are out there of this committee that's being formed, if we have to declare it open and say the announcement here as a board, that's, I think, worthy of calling a special meeting to do so. I just want to give a plug for that. I hope I didn't step on your intentions of.
So I will admit, I'm backed up after and trying to revise the makeup. And that with the start of school and a whole lot of other things, this slipped on my agenda because of some other things that were happening. I will move on it expeditiously now.
Thank you, Mr. President. Any other comments for the president? All right, now we're going to turn to Dr. Sahu.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and President Chancellor Shields. You have the Chancellor's report in your packet, but I would like to highlight some things that are not included, will be included, that I think will give you a good picture of where we are at Southern University, Baton Rouge. These are the details that President Chancellor alluded to. Last year, this year we have 7,374 students, of which the paid student is 6,711, which is 90%. Unpaid is little less than 10%. But there are good implications of this. Last year, we had 4% more enrolled in terms of numbers, but we ended up with close to 200 students who never paid. So when you go through the semester unpaid, that means you have to find the money and recognize that revenue when you don't have the cash flow. That's why the president is focusing on the cash flow situation. Luckily, we had the $50 to cover, but we won't have it this year. And so but please understand that those close to 200 students went to class, went through the process, received the instructions. Many of them lived on campus, ate at the cafeteria, but did not pay. So I think I support the President Chancellor's initiative to hold us more accountable, that the students who are registered, the students get the instruction they deserve, are more successful in terms of student outcomes, and that we have the cash flow to support. So that is in terms of enrollment. We have, again, 7,374, of which 90% of the students are paid, only 663. But I have assurance that many of these unpaid students will still pay because they are getting into payment plans as long as they show that they have good intent to stay in school and have a payment plan. We will do everything to adopt and embrace these students. We understand the challenges sometimes students have, but at the same time, we'll work with them. But we don't want to be in a situation where you have that many students who are unpaid, have lived on campus, and have also, ate in the cafeteria and remain unpaid. The second item I want to allude to is what President Chancellor Shields talked about. We had 3 upward bound of the TRIO programs. I want to commend the staff, and more so Dr. Kamesia Smith Ross, who is now leading the effort. Rhonda Robinson, I think, is the executive director now. We were privy to getting 5 new grants, and the totals add up to $11,652,440. It's significant because these grants are also going to generate indirect cost, and the indirect cost that will be added to the revenue of this campus is $663,150. 160. And more important is that it creates the pipeline, a reliable pipeline where we are grooming students who will come from the middle school to high school and then come to Southern University. Many of them will be on our campus prior to that, and they will get to see what Southern University is and the operations are. And I think we will have a big opportunity to recruit them. Many of them, the first generation, will be college students. They come from underserved and disadvantaged socioeconomic backgrounds. That is consistent with our mission as a NHBCU in Louisiana. The third thing that I want to highlight is that what the president also talked about is our success in terms of our career outreach, and we have a career fair coming up very soon. And on September 21, Career Services will host its annual career fair, and that is consistent again with the president's focus on student outcomes, enhanced retention, enhanced graduation, and enhanced placement. And that's the right thing to do. We also have the honor at Southern University, Baton Rouge, to host the first stop of the Emmett Till HBCU tour, this is a much anticipated film based on the true story of the fight for justice by Emmett Till's mother, Mamie Till Mobley. This film is co-produced and co-written by Southern alumnus Keith Buchan, an award-winning filmmaker. Would like to invite you to come and watch this movie on September 21st. This concludes my remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sahu. Mr. Hilliard.
We did have a shortage of housing when we started, but what we are thinking again with the president focus on, early notifications, engagement more in terms of financial aid and the outcomes, better customer service. We felt like we had more students, wanting to live on campus than housing available. We will benefit if we have more housing available sooner, because many of the students probably did not choose us because they could not, the families could not be assured, they could not be assured that housing will be available on campus, and these are fresh first-year students. But now we have a small vacancy. That means every student who wants to stay on campus will probably be accommodated at this point of time. The president has asked me and all the other vice chancellors to make sure that we provide notice to the students that every effort will be made to either accommodate them on campus or early on when they're, in the month of March, April, to direct them as to where they could live outside campus. But at this point of time, as I speak, we have a vacancy of about 70 to 80 students, 80 beds on campus. When we started, I think if I can find the exact number, but we were told that we probably would be short by 400 some beds. And then what we did that we are trying to, we placed a lot of the students in the Cadence, the apartment complex right outside. And then we also made arrangements with a local hotel close by, which could provide transportation to our campus, but that was not necessary because we could accommodate the students who wanted to stay on campus. But we could certainly benefit from more appropriate housing on campus. These are now residential facility because the students are very particular about what kind of housing they need. We don't call them dormitories anymore. So you didn't have to use the hotel? No, sir, we didn't have to use the hotel.
So, but if I can, there's no question we probably missed out on a significant number of students that could have attended here if we'd been better. I think you got to think about this in two ways. Number one, we need more campus-based housing. There's likely to be a few hundred units added, whether it can get done by next year or partway into the year. That's up, but that's out where the student housing is now, the quote honors dorm that they're putting together. There's also movement on the student center and other housing through the state, but also I think funded through HBCU. And then what you're seeing cleared over here, I never know if I'm pointing in the right direction. Anyway, that on the turn to come here by the artwork, that's also potential significant student housing. And the thought is, actually, a lot of people want to live on campus because if you have good student housing, there's not a lot of other options that are close by. So hopefully over the next 2 to 4 years, you'll see an additional 1,000 beds available. So that's part one. Now, the second point that I would make is we know now that we're not going to have enough housing for everybody who wants to live on campus next fall. So we should plan and create alternatives for them now. So we're doing two things. I'll be out of town for most of the next 2 weeks, but in early October, we're going to have a debrief with all of the vice chancellors that touch the onboarding and use the feedback we've gotten from alumni and others, phone calls. In fact, I would encourage any board members that receive phone calls or emails about the onboarding this year, get them to Alan Vital as quickly as you can, because we're going to sit down, we're going to do that debrief and learn from that process, and then we'll engage in a planning process, including all those moving parts once a month from November through February, and then twice a month, March through May, and then once a week, June through, I think, September 1, so that we can effectively plan and coordinate and appreciate how what one unit does affects the other unit. That's got to go differently. So we can't create more housing on campus that quickly, but we can certainly facilitate every student that wants to come to school here has effective options to take on in a timely fashion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just as long as we're planning and keeping that on our radar. I know we had mentioned some parking lots and other things, and there's plenty of beautification projects to even cover sidewalks. And I just want to make sure we keep student housing on the radar, because every school year we're surprised we're short housing. So that's good to hear. Thank you. Very good.
Mr. Pondell?
And rich part of that is because we're growing. This is something that's been consistent with all of our HBCUs. Initially, I had a chance to speak with President Shields, and coming in here, that was one of the things that he saw. And he said, we're going to do something about it. He said September was going to be the month we're going to do something about it. And he's taking that action as such to at least address and start talking about it and working to have it expedited in such a way that we know when next fall comes, we're going to have a bunch of more students that are looking to come to Southern University, because at the end of the day, we're doing what's right. You know, I'll go back and say this past weekend and just congratulate all of the folks here, all of our support staff, all of those folks that are watching, but especially to our leadership and what they did as far as representing this university in such a way with LSU, Chairman Shorty, yourself along with it, of a historic week. The history of this city in almost 124 years, these schools have not been able to be brought together. And doing that, obviously, we saw all the goodwill that came out of that this past week. So I just wanted to congratulate the board, the president, and to all of our folks that are viewing here, whatever direction it is, for being a part of something that was truly special here in at Southern for our system. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
One thing, Mr. Chairman, may I just allude for you to think about is that shortfall that we talked about, a small shortfall, is a shortfall in graduate enrollment. And I think it'll help immensely if we can have in the housing complex either a part or a separate housing for graduate students. Many of these are international students or married students. And I think if we make provisions for that, that'll help a lot in terms of increasing our graduate enrollment, and also to get more funds in terms of formula funding from the Board of Regents. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sahu. Before I turn to Chancellor Pierre, I do want to commend him on an excellent gala for the 75th anniversary of the law school. I'd also like to take this opportunity to commend Chancellor Pierre, and I'm gonna read this so I get it right. Chancellor Pierre is the 2022 recipient of the Educator of the Year Award. The Educator of the Year is a prestigious award designated by the Executive Committee and the CEO and President of the Thurgood Marshall College Fund. This award is reserved for college presidents and chancellors who exemplify the mission of the Thurgood Marshall College Fund and work to advance the collective goals of the HBCU community. Congratulations, Professor. Taught me in school.
I want to thank you for that. That means a lot to me. I give my heart and soul to this institution because it gave so much to me. I would not be where I am today if 45 years ago, this institution didn't take me in. As a kid, didn't necessarily know where he wanted to go. I was actually reached out to this week by Colonel Julius Caesar Coates. J.C. Coates was the ROTC instructor here who directed me to ROTC and to the ROTC scholarship. And it's just so heartwarming to know that I can be a part of giving back to the institution and to the world, the HBCU world that gave so much to me. So I thank you for the recognition coming from home.
Thank you for all you do, Chancellor.
Thank you. As far as my report, I want to again thank this board for always supporting what we want to do. Today, the board did a few things in addition to personnel. It is allowing us to name the Strategic Leadership Institute after Joseph M. Stewart, who is a very significant leader in the United States and is leading a very significant effort to deal with a very important issue, which is commonly referred to as the GU 272, to bring recognition and justice to a group of individuals that represents all of our families for enslavement and their treatment not as humans, and to recognize and having conversations with those people who enslaved them. And it's a fascinating project. It's a fascinating endeavor. And I think, thank you for recognizing him. Also, you agreed to support an MOU between the Greenfield LLC, Southern University Law Center, and the Ag Center, because we believe that this project, which will be in St. John the Baptist Parish on the West Bank, will be a project that will help a community that has been overlooked for economic development, and as a constituent in a community for us, because we recruit a lot of students from West St. John High School, the old Second Ward High School, and the community of Wallace and so forth and so on. So we hopefully will be able to start a relationship that will help not only members of those communities, but Black farmers, and deal with our legacy as a people. We are the people of the land in the South. Our people created wealth,
for others because of our free labor. And we were also afforded that opportunity to be owners of property. And sometimes that property was taken away from us so that we could not create our own wealth. And therefore, this is a small step to redress an issue that's still very, very important to African Americans in this country. I want to thank Dr. Orlando Williams. On the September 26th, we're going to have an expungement event in New Orleans in collaboration with Delgado Community College, Parish of Orleans, Parish of Jefferson, to, again, deal with issues that are impediments for many people of color to get better economic opportunities. And this is kind of part of the evolving of the Law Center into a workforce development force. We believe that this is extremely important work, and we're so glad that we are able to engage in this work with so many other partners. Next weekend, we're going to have the 3rd annual Sports and Entertainment Symposium, Law and Entertainment Business Symposium. And we hope to, again, attract many folks to an area where African Americans are very, very much drivers in this industry, but we don't necessarily share in the benefits of the industry in the way that's proportional to our contribution. I learned that we're going to be able to get to Baton Rouge a music mogul, entertainment mogul, gentleman by the name of Kevin Liles, who is probably one of the great music and entertainment entrepreneurs who really brought to the world what we refer to now as hip hop. And he's agreed, he's seen the value of what we're doing, and he's agreed to come. So we're very, really happy about that. And then next month, we're going to host 2 individuals. One is a Southern University alum who is the vice president for education at Apple, Ron Chandler, engineering alum. And then a lady who has come to love Southern University, Stacy Milner, who has developed an excellent program called HBCU in LA, who is single-handedly, through her work and work of her organization, brought opportunities for students from HBCUs to go and do internships and create permanent job opportunities and career opportunities in the entertainment industry by affording them internships that are paid internships with free housing. This past summer, she did that for over 70 students from HBCU institutions, and Southern University students were beneficiaries of that. So again, it's great to be a Jaguar. God bless Southern University.
Thank you, Chancellor, and congratulations, sir. Miss Ann, please.
I would just like to also congratulate Chancellor Pierre for the outreach that he does. Is it working? Yes. Okay. I would like to congratulate Chancellor Pierre also for the work that he does throughout the state of Louisiana. He doesn't forget the rural areas, and he's extremely modest because he has set up a couple of programs in our rural area for community and student involvement for additional skill sets that they have especially missed during the pandemic. So I would just like to say to you, Chancellor, thanks for you really go beyond. And he's modest because he never even talks about the fact that he has set up these programs for the rural. And I'm going to ask you to find a way to set up that program that you're taking to New Orleans. We need that one in the rural too. So thanks again for all you do for our children.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Ms. Foster.
Chancellor Pierre, or my security devices professor, my BCP professor. I've had the pleasure of being taught by the dean of your law school. That's not often. I just wanted to publicly recognize you for all that you do. Chairman Shorty, you're not the only one who gets bombarded with questions. I get to pull up on him on Mondays and Wednesdays from 5 to 6:15. And I just wanted to say I'm really proud of you. And by attending this law center, you have also changed my life by leaps and bounds. And the students recognize all that you do. And we're forever grateful for everything that you provide for us in the state of Louisiana and also globally. So once again, congratulations. No one else deserves this more than you.
Mr. Fondell.
I'd just like to follow in suit, Chancellor. Congratulations, well earned, well deserved. I know it's been a journey that you've gone 45 years back on, and we're just appreciative here of your service, of your dedication and your commitment, helping to educate and promote our legal system. Because I mean, from all heights, from local courts to our presence is throughout the state of Louisiana. So I just want to concur in congratulating you on a well-deserved honor that's brings recognition to you, but also to the work that you've done here within this system also. So thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Fondell. Mr. Lawson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, kudos to you. It's great to see him get the recognition he's getting. But what's phenomenal about this chancellor is what you don't see him do, and the accolades that he deserves that he will never get. And that's just phenomenal. He's one of the most humble people you ever wanted to meet. And if there's ever been somebody that could walk with kings and never forgot the common touch, it's the chancellor of our law center. So it's a privilege knowing him and what he does for so many people. With that light, though, I wanted to recognize a young man that got on me this morning, and before then, he's a 1L. He walked in the room. His name is Jameson Jackson. That 1L means 1 year, but Lord, you know, it's tough. But I wanted to commend him. He got, I mentioned earlier, Mr. Jackson, you stand up, and kudos to him. He's from Mississippi, and he's been helping folk from Mississippi for the challenges that he's a phenomenal singer, by the way, and keyboard player. Thank you, Chancellor.
Thank you, Mr. Lawson. We'll now turn to Chancellor McMeans and his report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and President Shield and honorable board members. I also want to echo my congrats to my colleague, Chancellor Pierre. I think maybe Dr. Ammons may be one of a few people in this room know how competitive that award is across all of these universities and all of these outstanding leaders that we have as a part of the HBCU community. So my congrats to Chancellor Pierre. I have a couple of things to touch on. President Shields talked a little bit about the A&M agenda, and I will be trying to report on this on a monthly basis. One of the things you may want to know is that we have a new interim vice president for agriculture at the LSU Ag Center and dean. So this is the third VP/dean in the last 13 months. So right now they're trying to fill the position permanently, but Dr. Matt Lee, and some of you may know him, he used to be provost at one time at LSU. But he and I this week signed a save the date document to reinitiate the annual conference between the LSU and Southern University Ag Centers, as well as the colleges of Ag. So we're excited about that. It's going to take place December 12th through the 13th, 2022. And we're looking forward to having an event where our colleagues and faculty and staff from research, extension, and academia come together and share information, network, and talk about how we can live up to the tripartite mission, and that is the improving the quality of lives and communities for all the individuals we collectively serve. The next, something I'm excited about because it's the only one of its kind in the state of Louisiana. Next week, September 21st through the 23rd, we'll be hosting our 11th annual Louisiana Small Farmers Conference. And this is very important. You can read between the lines. Small farmers a lot of time means socially disadvantaged minority farmers in most instances. And I'm proud of the leadership of our extension program. It will be held at the Hilton Hotel, and we'll make sure that you get information on that. As I was reading some talking points, it started off as 25 to 50 farmers networking and sharing information. And now we're expecting up to about 300 individuals. That's one of the reasons why we're holding it at the Hilton. So we're excited about that. Medical marijuana, I just want to bring your attention to some great things. I'm not going to necessarily talk dollars because I know what my colleagues are going to say and maybe President Shields is going to say, so we're not going to talk about the money part. But I think we're in a great we're at a great point where I never thought that we would reach a threshold of sales, and we're about to reach that, in which the university can further benefit beyond our initial check that we get the first of the year. And so I'm excited about that and excited about the potential. But one of the things that we're still running into, and I'll get it out there, is we made changes, but we're still having problems with the testing. Testing is still a challenge, even though they changed the authority. And so what we're going to take advantage of the new legislation is that we're going to bring in a third party to be a tester for Southern University via ILERA. So we're going to bring in our third party. And also, I was talking to Chairman Shorty last night. We're also looking in expanding the footprint of ILERA to other parts of the state that is having other growing areas, not only from the standpoint of the fact we're growing, but also for potential economic development for those areas. And last but not least, as I was sitting here today, I received an email that we will be receiving $1.9 million from USDA for our meat processing facility expansion. So Mr. Dawson, I said 2 million, so we were $100,000 short, but it goes a long ways in our $5.7 million project. So I'm proud of the faculty that participated in writing the grant for $2 million. And you will hear more about meat processing because it was one area that was elucidated during the pandemic. I mean, you're talking about when you went to the store, you knew what you were buying. I mean, you were overpriced. And so we want to bring our Black farmers in and get them in on outreach that will be geared towards the small and socially disadvantaged farmers. And this concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Dr. McMeans. Dr. Penny.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, to President Chancellor Shields, distinguished members of the Southern University Board of Supervisors. I too join Chancellor McMeans in congratulating Chancellor Pierre, someone I get to call not only Chancellor, but I get to call friend. Congratulations, John. Really well earned, well deserved, as echoed. I bring a few remarks on behalf of SUSLA. Number one, some really good news in area of enrollment and registration. And I just got the latest email. Today, SUSLA has a total of 311 students registered compared to 2729 at the same time last year, which is an increase of 282 students, or a 10% increase at the same point last year. Of that number, we have 2,299 students paid, which compares to 1,924 students paid at the same time last year, which is an increase of the number of paid students by 375, or a 19.5% increase in the number of paid students. And by the way, as a frame of reference, the last time SUSLA had a total of registered students over 3,000, that was 5 years ago. And much kudos to Vice Chancellor Michael Taylor and the entire enrollment management team, along with the CFO, Brandy Jacobson. A few other things. Semester started really great. We had our Faculty and Staff Institute on August 23rd. We had our Board of Regents site visit on August 25th, similar to the visit that Baton Rouge had yesterday, really highlighting for us 3 projects: our one-stop shop, focusing on student outcomes for the upcoming year, our science building renovation, and our drainage and domestic loop on the campus that's 55 years old that desperately needs replacing. altogether totaling close to $36 million that we intend to submit for capital outlay requests in the upcoming year. A highlight on the academic area, really wanted to highlight our Department of Engineering Technology and acknowledge Dr. Kenny Moses, our Vice Chancellor, Dr. McCray. This is a really critical program that got approved by the Board of Regents, is the Engineering Technology program. We have 3 concentrations: process technology, industrial engineering technology, and computer engineering technology. In what we submitted to Board of Regents, we started with having 10 students. That's what the proposal had. And as of today, we have 24 students in the program. That is a 2.5-fold increase over what we even projected when we submitted this particular program. What's even more phenomenal, and I give all the kudos to our faculty, is that this engineering technology program is undergirded and supported by the federal government to the tune of $950,000 from the U.S. Department of Energy. So very grateful for that. And on that, Mr. Chairman, you have a copy of the paper copy of the report. It was also submitted in the Chancellor's package, and I yield for any questions. Otherwise, I conclude, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Smith.
Thank you for the professional report. Last month and this month. Very well read, and thanks for the effort.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, Dr. Penny.
Thank you, Mr.
Chancellor Ammons.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board, colleagues. I too want to extend my congratulations to Chancellor Pierre on the 2022 Educator of the Year Award by the Thurgood Marshall College Fund. This is a big deal. And again, I want to congratulate him on his outstanding leadership of the Southern University Law Center. I was asked at the meeting of the board last week to present a report on housing at SUNO, and that report is in the packet. Wanted to just say a few things about it. First, we have pretty close to a 50% occupancy rate, and we are making rooms available almost on a daily basis. We have a 7-phase plan for housing at the university. As you know, Dillard University has contracted with us to provide housing for some of their students, and they are adding students almost on a daily basis. We have hired a project manager to help us guide this work on bringing more of our facilities up to standard. Mr. Brian LaFleur of BJL Group is our construction manager. We've also hired a new residential director, and I am keeping tabs on what is going on in housing. I had a town hall meeting with the housing residents earlier this week, and the students are settling in. The one thing that we've noticed is that we've had a surge in demand for housing this year, and it could be one of the consequences or one of the results of the pandemic, where students want to get out of their parents' homes and have a complete college experience. Our enrollment is up this year. We have a 31% increase in our freshman class, and our transfer students are also up. We have 572 students in dual enrollment. 75% of our students are paid, and we are working with the other students to assist them with paying their tuition and fees. I also want to acknowledge the great work of our science faculty led by Dr. Murti Kambampati, Professor of Biology. We were just notified that he and his colleagues received a 3-year Renaissance in STEM education called a RISE grant in the amount of $749,000 from the U.S. Department of Education's Minority Science and Engineering Improvement Program. And this grant is going to provide support for faculty in student research. The last thing I want to do is to just put on your radar screen that we will have our homecoming celebration this year, beginning on October 27th with the ribbon cutting of the Southern University at New Orleans Museum of Art. And the bash is going to be held on October 28th. Everyone will get invitations to it. And we'll have our opening men and women basketball game on the night of the 29th of October. So, Mr. Chair, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Chancellor Ammons. Mr. Fondale? Yes. There is one other piece of business that we need to deal with before we leave, brought to me by the General Counsel, and we need to direct General Counsel's office specifically relative to a policy that we need developed so that we maintain compliance with current Louisiana law. So the board directs the Office of General Counsel to develop a proposed system policy in accordance with Louisiana Revised Statute 17:3390 for the board's consideration at its October meeting. In the interim, all payments to or on behalf of system employees for supplemental compensation, non-compensation related expenses, or reimbursement of expenses paid by any affiliated organization of the system requires the approval of the president. This is to keep us in compliance with current state law, and Ms. Blosh will come up with a policy by next month's meeting. Thank you. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Wait,
Mr. Fondale?
All right. Think we have any other business on the agenda?
No.
Okay, well, this is what I'd like to make a statement.
Mm.
All right. I mentioned earlier, I recognize yourself along with the president also, but I also wanted to recognize our chair lady, Ms. Ann Smith, with regards to a few years ago, getting to the game that we played against LSU. It came as a result of our two boards meeting at the City Club. I think it was in 2018, we had an opportunity to go to a dinner over there and speak with them. And as a result of that, the game was able to come out of it. I want to also mention the effort that was put into it by our athletic director also, that went into getting this game scheduled, literally going back to the programs that we had back in 2015 when this program was taken over as such. We were only at 3 programs. We've moved our way all the way up to having all of our programs inclusive, being recognized by the NCAA for being a model program. But one of the things, myself having served as a committee chair and a member of this standing committee, that we've always pushed for was equity. And when I say equity, like I told the president earlier, I'm speaking with regards to pay, making sure that we are with regards to equity for our Title III employees, which are our female coaches that are over there. These are things that we've worked for over the years. And I think we're close to the point to where we're going to be able to advance those particular issues. You know, while we may have challenges, we work through those challenges in such a way to where we have one of the highest GPA rates amongst our programs, graduation rate amongst our programs and our athletics department over there. So I just wanted to make sure that we spoke about that and also give that recognition also for all the efforts our athletic department has done. Most of them are not here on today because many are headed out to Dallas for the big classic game that we're going to be having on tomorrow. So with that being said, my final words at this board meeting are go Jags.
Thank you. Can we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
So moved by Mr. Fondale, seconded by Mr. Lawson. We are adjourned.